Welcome, everybody, to the Two Stewards Show. My name's Mark. I'm here with Brent.
Welcome, everybody.
Oh, wow. Very soft-spoken Brent today.
Double welcome. So I'm getting my head back into things here. I was unplugged.
Unplugged.
Have you ever done that, Mark?
No.
Yeah, I haven't either,
years.
so I did it, and I'm back.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out how to work my computer and my phone again.
Yeah, well, you missed a few things, Brent.
Oh, well, fill me in on the details.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back.
It's funny because I went camping with my family. We have a few young kids, three young boys, and you go camping. You're in the wilderness, and you turn off your phone and everything.
For 40 years or
for a week?
Just a week. Okay.
I turn my brain off essentially, right? And then some adult asked you a question, and you're like, "Wait, what?" Oh yeah, I have to think. Used to talking to kids and just doing the,
building a fire.
Yeah, same old thing over
roasting
and over.
hot dogs.
Yeah. And somebody asks you a question, you're like, "Oh, I got to think." Okay, so
Did you catch any fish?
yeah, we caught some fish.
Did you eat the fish?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Wow. So you caught them and ate them.
yeah. Is that against the rules or?
No, it's like who does
I was
that
looking
anymore,
it
right?
up because you can get a fishing license, but or you have to get a fishing license here in Ontario. But I think that week or this past week was whatever, anyone can go fishing.
Oh, really?
You need a license, yeah.
Like a jubilee
Yeah.
on fishing
Yeah.
licenses.
So there was no fish left after the end of the week.
Yeah. All the Dutch people were out there. Well, that's good if you like fish.
Freezer's full, and let's get to the podcast.
Yeah, nice. Well, while you were away, unemployment numbers came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not looking so hot. Unemployment was up.
That's
Well,
'cause I
actually, it's
wasn't
interesting.
working.
Employment wasn't much changed,
Right.
but unemployment was up. It's like, that's interesting. How does that work?
Yeah. How does that work? Because that doesn't make any sense in my head.
Well, when you add to the population
Right.
and those people who are coming in don't work, or they take jobs and then people who are here, work less, and that's how that works.
So then the people who come here don't have jobs, they're unemployed. So that increases the unemployment.
Correct.
But the people who are currently here who are employed
Stay employed.
stay employed, and
Yeah.
it doesn't change.
Yeah.
But doesn't unemployment, I think we talked about this, that if somebody is not looking for a job, then they're not unemployed.
Yeah, but generally if you're coming here, like if you're immigrating here or even on a work permit or whatever, or a study permit,
Yeah.
you're looking for work, right?
Right.
So you need to support yourself. So they would be, and I mean, that we don't have all the numbers, but I mean, that is a pretty good explanation. And looking at, immigration is still like just smoking hot. Lots coming in. So that's one, one explanation.
Wait. What does that actually mean though? That we're waiting for this number to come out. That's great. It came out. Are we surprised that it was down or up? Sorry.
No, not really, but it's, not a good indicator, right? The
like for the Canadian economy, it's not a great outlook.
yeah, I mean, TD did an analysis and they said, well, we're, it's
we
okay. We're
trust
not falling
TD?
off a cliff. Well, I mean,
With their big scandal going on?
yeah, no, the U.S. government doesn't trust TD. They're money laundering fines. So yeah, I mean, you got to look at employment as a longer term trend as well, right? So it's not heading in the right direction. So it's not a good sign for the Canadian economy, right? Government employment continues to rise year over year. I think it may be a little, or public administration was a little bit down, but healthcare and social assistance was up 30,000 jobs, construction down 30,000 jobs. So
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, so just a continuing trend, right? Of
Public sector
jobs growing, private sector jobs decreasing. And even, they talk about growth in like some of these electric vehicle and battery plants and stuff. It's like, which is all heavily subsidized by the government, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, and youth unemployment apparently is up like 16 to 24, and especially
I've heard that.
returning students.
Just anecdotally, people younger.
We talked about it last time,
Okay.
but now there's actually data to back that up, right?
Okay.
Because, immigrants coming into the country, whether permanent or non, right, they're going to take whatever job they can get.
And these are not necessarily younger people. These could be older immigrants.
They could, but most of them, I think, are younger. right? It's
Yeah.
students.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, mostly. So yeah, they're going to take all, any kind of low wage jobs. And you hear about all kinds of abuses as well with the LMIA program, the labor market. I can't remember what it stands for, but this is basically where you can come to Canada and work
Yeah.
if you're, deemed essential. So what you do if you're
The labor
If you're-
market impact assessment.
yes. So there are tons of consultants
Yeah.
who work in the MLIA sector, make tons of money. And there's all kinds of scams around this, right? And a few people have said, you know what, we just got to stop LMIA, just freeze it and just take a breath because it is so abused. And almost every job that is posted through this is fraudulent, right? But again, government, immigration minister, they don't care. They just want to bring people in to supposedly boost productivity, although it's showing that it's not. It's increasing unemployment. GDP is going down, even by their own fake measures, is not working. But yeah, these LMIA. So for example, you could have an administrative assistant job. So that is
So
a
when you say
skilled.
you, like if a company
One.
in Canada is trying to hire an administrative assistant.
So let's say you're a trucking company. You
Yeah.
need some dispatchers and some whatevers. Well, you can't hire a foreign dispatcher because you have to prove, well, number one, it has to be, there's a whole bunch of criteria, right? So if you can prove that there's nobody in Canada who can do this skilled job, then you can hire a foreign worker. If it's an unskilled job, you basically can't hire a foreign worker unless it's like agricultural or something. But you basically have to prove that there is a need for this job, that it's valuable, it's skilled work, and that you can't find anybody.
So that's where the consultant steps in to try and.
Yeah. So then instead of advertising for a dispatcher, you advertise for administrative assistant. And then if you go on all these job boards, you look at the description for administrative assistant, it's like copy and paste.
Right.
There's nothing personalized to the job, right? And so it will actually be for something like a dispatcher or whatever, right? And nothing wrong with those jobs, that's fine.
Yeah.
But those are not in the skilled category. So if it's a skilled thing, you get a boost in the points, and now you can makes it easier to hire someone, right? So what they'll do is they'll, as long as you do one of the tasks in the job description, then that's valid, and you can hire that person as an admin assistant. But what a lot of companies are doing is allegedly, just say that.
Allegedly doing.
Well, is they will either charge this person tens of thousands of dollars through this consultant for the job, right? So the consultant gets a chunk, the company gets some back to rebate the wages, or they just say you're going to get paid $30 an hour, but you're going to pay us back $15 an hour once we pay you. So that way on paper, it looks like they're making this money, but the deal is you're paying half this money back to the company. Just complete unethical nonsense.
Yeah.
Supervisors, right? Everybody's a supervisor in the food service industry. So to hire a supervisor at McDonald's, that is skilled work, right? If you hire just like a cashier or a burger flipper, that's not skilled, so you wouldn't qualify for this program. But if it's a supervisor, you can. Right. So apparently everybody is a supervisor, and there's no way to police it, right? If you're like, didn't you just hire 10 supervisors last month? It's yeah, they all quit. Oh, where they are. We needed more. Okay. So there's no enforcement. It's just a joke.
What about the burger supervisors and the fry supervisors?
Yeah, as long as you're a supervisor.
Here's a spatula.
Yeah, everybody's a supervisor, right? So it's just rife with abuse, and the government doesn't care, right? They're spending money on gender inclusive.
Go on vacation again.
You probably should, right? I just saw another grant for Latin America for gender inclusive climate change studies or something, right? So where these poor, silly countries, A, they need to focus on climate change, and B, they don't even know how to do it. They're doing it in a way that is not gender inclusive.
Right.
So we have to send them money to show them how to do this in our infinite wisdom.
From Canada.
Yeah. Never mind, we got, we got all kinds of problems, but we're going to Like it blows my mind, right? And like if you don't believe me, look it up. Like I could understand why you wouldn't believe me.
Yeah,
but
or wouldn't want
look
to,
it up.
anyways.
Yeah, because it's just it's ridiculous. Anyways, that's just doom and gloom.
Okay, so but that's the Phillips curve that we talked about now. It's broken, right? Is unemployment and inflation, and
yeah, inflation's staying persistently high. Unemployment is rising, and I mean, like part of it is because of this massive immigration.
Yeah,
like it's not.
But that's what academics are basing off our these economic theories and the monetary policy decisions that we're making as a government.
Yeah, well, specifically Bank of Canada interest rates, right? And I mean, this all affects real estate when we're talking about this. But so people are like, oh, look at these unemployment numbers. They're going to have to cut rates. And it's like, nah, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of the point of raising rates is to tamp growth.
Right.
So when you tamp growth down,
kind of expect that, right?
According to the Phillips curve, unemployment should rise.
Yeah.
But the problem is we're not seeing.
Be happy about that, the government.
Well, yeah.
Because that's their goal, their stated goal. Or the Bank of Canada's stated goal.
Well, I mean, like I kind of get it, right? If it resulted in inflation decreasing by increasing unemployment, like, okay, so be it. Like, it's not a nice thing, but when you're looking at sort of a macro picture and how to keep the country healthy, that's
neither of these things are good. Like, inflation going up is not good because things get less and less affordable. Like it costs more money. Yeah. So that's not good. But then the flip side is unemployment going up and no one has a job. No one can make money.
You'd be on benefits.
Which one do you want?
Yeah.
I don't know. You're constantly on this pendulum trying to swing between, you don't have a job and you can't afford anything, or you have a job but you can't afford anything because it's way too expensive.
That's the
modern world we live in. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome back from vacation, Brent.
So, and I mean, immigration is still, like I said, it's still hopping. Right?
Well, you said there's three things that.
Well, somebody made this theory that there's three things that drive our economy
in Canada,
and I haven't fully absorbed this, but it seemed like a good argument. So those three things are immigration, housing, and natural resources. So we've done our best to kill any dependence on natural resources, right? Oil and gas sector, forestry, all that stuff, because that's terrible. It contributes to climate change, et cetera, et cetera. Housing is taking a nosedive, right? So what do we have left? Immigration, right? And we can see that immigration is not fixing GDP. It's not helping at all. So, where does that leave us?
And all of those are different political battles to get into, right? Do you want to focus, if you're a politician, do you want to focus on immigration and get into that? Or do you want to focus on housing? Because that's a big, or energy, right? Like which sector, resources or whatever you said, right? Which sector do you want to go to?
Well, I mean, to me, the answer is clear, and we've said it before, right? Like natural resources. This is what the country was built on, could continue to, right? We have so much and we're squandering. We're not being good stewards.
Yeah.
But I mean, that depends on your view of, of climate change and carbon emissions and all this other nonsense. I'm just looking at my notes here. So you have this backdrop, right? We have also the political backdrop of this deeply unpopular prime minister and what's going to happen with him. I don't think he's going to step down. By all accounts, he's becoming more isolated and talking less to his caucus. He just made an announcement about an investment in electric buses in York region. So a fleet of 180, which, interestingly, they tried this in, was it Edmonton, right? And they don't work in the winter. So,
really?
There's that. But one of the comments was, congratulations. How many buses did you buy to throw your caucus under?
That's not good.
So everybody's getting blamed for but him for the government failure. So anyways, I think there will be some announcements and changes, and this is what people are speculating on, specifically around the like a home equity tax.
Yeah. Okay. Canadian home equity tax.
Yeah. Even got a name.
Yeah. It already has a name. Okay. It's a pilot project. The most permanent thing.
Yeah.
Should we tax? So we already tax homes, just not like we tax investment properties, right?
Yes.
An investor sells a property, you have capital gains tax. Okay. Well, should we tax in Canada someone's home? It's primary residence.
Primary residence. So Trudeau had, he had some stuff. He was traveling around doing some stuff, and one of the things that he did was he met with this organization called Generation Squeeze, and this is an organization that has been advocating for a home equity tax for quite a while. So they have.
Did he talk to them to battle it out or to?
I don't know. I haven't listened. So apparently part of this was released on a podcast.
Okay.
So the Q&A session was not, but it's out there. This was just is either yesterday or 2 days ago.
Link to that in the show notes.
Yeah. Get in, link to that, would you?
Generation Squeeze.
So yeah, some of the conversation is available, and I haven't listened to that, but you can go to the Generation Squeeze website, goodstewards.ca, and I can pull it up on the video here, right? So they've got an angle, and one of their solutions, right? So it says, the symptoms: unaffordable housing, unaffordable childcare, climate breakdown, and what else? Government debt, a bleak legacy.
Yeah.
Right. So their whole shtick is that you have the older generation who's got it so good, and the younger generation who's got it so bad, and we got to take from one to give to the other.
These are the symptoms that the young people are feeling right now. Is government debt is this big burden that's looming over their heads. They can't afford to buy a house. There's just
they can't afford childcare. The climate is breaking down. So you can already see the angle that they're approaching this from, right? So there's solutions,
and they point the finger at, like, they call it, join us to fight the disease, generational unfairness. That's the disease. So generational unfairness is a disease. Is the problem. Like,
that's the main, it's like, guys, is that really the problem? So, they contend that we spend too much on the elderly, which I think is pretty debatable. So they want to, break down government spending by age, fill the hole that poor planning has left in government budgets, and a tax shift to benefit the vast majority. So they got a handy little, they got a few of these. They're different for everybody. But yeah, some of if you're listening, there's a picture of a mountain. At the top of the mountain is the goal: budget fairly for all generations. And then some of the steps on the way are: put a high enough price on pollution to reduce environmental debts, whatever those are. Don't grow debts on younger people outside of a recession. So there's Keynesian economics, which has really served us well. Not invest fairly for young and old alike. So, that sounds good, right? Invest fairly for you. Yeah, it's equity, it's equality. Yeah. It's investing, right? That's good. This is just government spending. This is not investing.
Yeah. Everything sounds good on here, because even if you go to their thing, it says, how can we be better ancestors? We're asking Canadians and our elected leaders to be good stewards. And that's kind of our podcast.
Yeah, too. I guess we can just shut her down and
just join this organization. Be good stewards, follow the golden rule, plan for all ages, is they're kind of like.
Yeah. One of the last pillars here is rebalance taxes on income versus wealth, especially housing wealth. And we've heard this before as well. I think Floyd Marinescu of, I can't remember the organization, but they've got a thing where it's like we should, tax land instead of income. Yeah. And so, on the face of it, that's maybe not the worst idea ever, but you would have to abolish income tax and go solely to a land tax. Yeah. And we know that would never happen. The government is addicted to spending and to tax income, and they'll never get rid of one source of tax. And even if one government did, the next government would be like, oh, so we got this additional tax, like the GST, right? Yeah. There was never a reduction anywhere else. There's just additional taxation. Yeah. And if somebody says, we'll balance it out here, well, the next government's going to come in and be like, well, we're keeping this new tax, but we're going to increase the other thing back up as well because we need more money.
Yeah.
So
So a Canadian home equity tax, is that a good idea?
I think you might know where I stand on that, Brent.
Well, because the idea, I guess, is that these people
you people.
Like, okay, so somebody who has a house, who's paid it down, who's older now, retired,
Yep.
they should be taxed because
they're terrible, obviously.
They took a risk when they were young. They worked hard to pay it down over their whole life, and they benefited from the government printing money and asset inflation, and now they own a free and clear home. So we should tax them and take that and give it to the young people.
Yeah, because they're terrible people, obviously, for having done all that stuff. Well, that's not.
I'm trying to create a picture of what, why is it that we need to tax them, or
because they have more and other people have less. Right. I think that's what it comes down. So, and
they didn't earn it. Like the house price just went up. They didn't actually earn anything.
So this is one argument that I've heard about taxing primary residences, and they always say we're going to start only with homes over $1 million. And guess what? In 10 years, every home in a major urban center in Ontario and BC anyways is going to be worth $1 million.
Yeah.
Because the dollar is going to debase to that point.
Yeah.
So then it's going to be everybody. But that's always how these things start, is we're only just going to tax, even with the new capital gains inclusion increase, it's only going to affect 0.13% of the population. Then you find out no, it's what's wrong? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Just checking to make sure you got a USB stick in this time.
I do. But it's just going to be a small percentage of the population, and it's those really rich people who we don't like anyways. And then later on you find out oh no, it's a much larger portion. But whatever. It's there now, so let's keep the tax. But to me, it's simple. Going back to Marxism, there's a power struggle, there's inequity.
Yeah. Take from one, give to another.
Yeah, because if somebody has more than somebody else, they must have done something wrong to get there. So these people, right? These old people, these old misers who get too much government funding anyways, right? Because they made it, like you said, made a decision a long time ago to buy a home, and of course, a 30-year-old versus a 70-year-old, who do you think is going to have their house paid off? Well, probably the 70-year-old, because they've had more time to do it, even if they have the exact same behavior patterns.
They probably had a 20-year mortgage instead of a 50 or a 40-year, like they have now.
So, but now we're going to punish them for that, for being responsible, right? And if, so you could say, well, now they're, their children, they're going to help them out so they can buy a house. But the parents of people who, other people who couldn't afford a house, they can't help their children, and this is generational unfairness. It's
I think the blame has to go back to the money printer, because taking from one group and giving to another, right, is not, like you said, it's Marxist kind of ideology. But you made the comment about every house in a major urban center in Ontario, BC being worth $1 million, basically on the premise that the dollars that they're denominated in are going to be worth, let's say, half as much or whatever, right?
Yep.
What that does, because if you think about that, then everybody who has a house, all their house values go up, and they're rich, or they're the generationally unfair people, because the people who don't have a house aren't.
Yeah.
What the money system that we have is doing is just taking from the one group who doesn't have assets and giving it to the people who do have assets. So where is that done? Comment coming out in any of this stuff, I don't know, in the Prime Minister's conversation, I didn't listen to it, but I'm assuming he didn't point that out. But also, I can't read anywhere on this about how, on Generation Squeeze, how the problem is not the generation. It's not the people who bought a house that risked their whatever for years to pay it off and work on it and clean the driveway and fix it all up and raise their family and all the bedrooms and then whatever. It's not those people. It's the money system and the fact that the government can control it and uses it to basically confiscate the wealth of people who save in the currency and give it to asset holders.
Yeah, but people don't see that, and people don't want to see that. And especially the government, it's much easier to say, look, you've got the rich and we should tax them, because that's always been a thing, right? At least since Karl Marx was around.
Since we
right?
started the podcast, anyways.
So, okay, let me just, we're going to rag on these guys a little bit longer, right? They've got the housing solutions and they got this little mountain. All Canadians, the goal is that all Canadians can afford a good home by 2030.
What's a good home?
Which sounds suspiciously
I was just living
like
in a tent for a week.
Yeah.
Some people would say that's not a good home.
No.
Right? Like what they would.
Yeah, what's a good home, right?
They would go camping in a trailer, and to them, that's a good home. It's like, well, this is good enough for me. I don't know, for a week, anyways. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to say anyone should live in tents, but
it sounds suspiciously like the government planned to build, 6 million homes by 2031. Like you're picking a date, and it's like, it's far enough out there. We'll figure it out, right? But so what are the solutions here?
Far enough out there that we won't be in office.
Well, this is Generation Squeeze, not the government.
Okay.
So goals are scale up non-market housing. Well, what is that? That's just government spending. Break the addiction to rising home values. Okay, like what addiction is there? Fix the regular market.
That's an admission of the reality that we were just talking about, though. Maybe.
What's
that we
that?
are addicted to rising home. Like, I guess you pointed out how the Canadian economy relies on housing, right? And how people like us are calling the government's bluff and buying assets, trying to basically protect our future. And
okay, so yeah, that's an argument. We're addicted to this or whatever, and then people will trot out a chart like this. So again, apologies if you're not watching but listening. So this chart is residential investment versus business investment as a percentage of GDP, and this is in Canada specifically. So it goes back to 1980, and there's a red line and there's a blue line, and they go up and down like charts do, but around. Right around 2000, well, probably
when
2005.
You say they go up and down, you mean they're...
It's not a straight line.
Yeah.
Static.
But
so there's some variation.
They don't diverge from each other as big as they do.
Yeah, so 2005, you saw there's a bit of a crossover. There were other crossovers, but right around 2007, which is the beginning of the Great Financial Crisis, you see it really starts to split and move. So the red line is investment in machinery, equipment, research, and development as a percentage of GDP. So you could say that's business investment, more or less.
So
and
where
that has
Canada's,
dropped from 6% roughly around 2008 to 3.7% ish. And then we saw around that same time period around 6% for residential investment as a percentage of GDP. And then that has gone up to just under 8% now. So you've got from being around the same 6%, business investment has dropped to under 4%. We're almost up to 8% for residential investment. And there's a huge spike here to 10% right during COVID times. So people are using this as proof that, Canadians are misers and they're just buying homes and whatever. But to me, I'm looking at it going like, well, yeah, the price of assets increased in that time period steadily. And then look what happened in COVID. The price of people didn't invest more into housing in COVID. No. The price of homes increased and then they fell back down, which we're seeing now. So to me, this is more emblematic of the fact that, real estate just went up in value.
The price increased during COVID?
Well, what happened during COVID? The government spent tons and tons of money, right? And I feel like it's simplistic, and we keep beating the same drum that it's government spending, it's money printing, and then every once in a while I'll sit back and be like, I don't know. People keep saying it's all these other things. Like, am I wrong? Maybe, but then you just go back and look at the data, and you're like, no, it's government spending. You morons.
Yeah.
It's not old miserly people who are like sitting in their homes
counting money.
Yeah, they're in their
looking
easy
out their
chair.
window at all the young people.
I could just see them rubbing their hands together, cackling at these poor children playing in the street because they can't afford it. Like, no, that's not what's happening here, right? You can't blame them for they paid off their house and it increased in value. Well, so what?
Yeah.
Like, it's not their fault. They didn't do it. And it's not the fault of real estate investors who are like, wow, my money is getting debased really quickly. What is the only thing I can do? I guess I'll buy another home because nothing else works. And trying to start a business in Canada is just a huge pain in the butt, and risk versus reward. Like you've said it before, right? Money follows the easiest path.
Yeah.
So I think we happen to share the value that if you could do it, start a business. That is going to be your best return on investment, better than real estate. And if you start a business in real estate, like, wait, great, you compound it. But for a lot of other people, they're like, I could do stock market. I can't start a business. My money is going to be best served by buying an investment property. That's what Canadians have done. So that is a symptom of government overspending, not the cause of the problem. But that's where you get these simpletons, like the people at Generation Squeeze, and who just see the end result and say the symptom is the problem.
Yeah, because one of their things was reduce reliance on real estate to drive economic growth. And I agree. I would agree. Yeah, we don't want real estate sector to be a main driver in Canada's economy. Like we've talked about the monetary premium that housing has, right? We don't want to see houses have such a big monetary premium, but what needs to change first is the monetary system, not like you said, the symptom, right?
Yeah. And even just the pattern of investment in Canada. You know what? Instead of everybody, I think 1 in 6 Canadian homeowners, so people who already own a home, own another home.
Omaha, isn't that a place in
Omaha? Yeah,
isn't that a place in
home of Warren Buffett?
Yeah. I thought you were talking about Oklahoma.
That's Oklahoma. Don't make me break out into song. That was a musical back in the day.
Oh boy.
Anyways, you got me all off track here. No, like instead of 1 in 6 Canadian homeowners owning another home, we agree that the over-reliance on real estate is not good for our country. But maybe instead of owning another home, we should all have a logging company or a mining company or like a plot of land where we're like logging or, mining or drilling for gas or oil.
Yeah.
That's what we should be doing.
Being productive.
Yeah, because the world needs more energy. We can supply it. We can do it. If you're concerned about that, we can do it, quote unquote, ethically.
Yeah.
Right. Much more ethically than other countries who don't really care about human rights or all the other stuff that we claim to care about. But when we buy our Tesla or whatever, we don't care that, children are mining cobalt in Congo. Yeah. Do we really care?
No, because we want a virtue factory here with our electric buses.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So the basic plan of Generation Squeeze to fix the housing solution is home prices stall so earnings catch up.
Yeah.
That's the basic plan. Stall home prices so earnings can catch up.
And so again, every lie has a grain of truth, right? Like that wouldn't be a bad thing, right?
If house prices just kind of stay stable for a bit, earnings can hopefully creep up a bit so we can eventually afford again.
But
it doesn't really.
It's an uninformed take. Right? Because, again, let's go over it again.
Listening to our show.
Yeah, I know, right? We should maybe get them on here. But what?
Can we get them on here?
Yeah. Call them up.
He's probably a lot smarter than we are, but...
Probably. Right? But why would house prices stall? Because houses are assets. If the prices stall, that means...
There's not enough people buying them? Or there's too many of them?
Well, that means we either got a problem with the economy or the government stops printing money.
Yeah.
Right? We know that's not going to happen, so it would have to be a problem with the economy. In that case, wages are not going to go up. The only reason that asset prices increase, other than like their utility value increases, which doesn't happen, is because of money printing. It's because the government is spending money recklessly. So every part of their plan here... It relies on the government spending more money.
It does say it's a basic plan. It doesn't say...
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I don't want to see the intense, very sophisticated plan.
Yeah.
But you got to buy the whole package to get this. You got to invest. Guiding principles. Homes first, investments second.
Yeah. But I mean, like, what is the scenario under which home prices would stall and earnings would go up? You need inflation to rise.
We just talked
for
about
earnings
at the top
to go
of the
up.
show, right? And unemployment. Like if we want inflation to come down, and employment's going to go up, then people won't, their earnings won't be catching up.
Yeah.
Earnings will be falling behind.
And what happens when
inflation
earnings
goes down, home prices go down.
Well, and if earnings are rising, right? This is the thing that economists are worried about.
Earnings rising?
Yes.
Not their earnings.
No, not their earnings. But even we saw in the UK where one of the ministers, I mean, they're gone now. There's a new government, but one of the ministers said, like, guys, let's not make wage growth a priority. Let's let wages sit, because if wages go up, we get caught in the spiral of inflation, which makes sense, right? Sticky wages. That means like wages are going up, but when wages go up,
prices,
the cost of everything goes up because you're paying for people's wages in, the supply chain and everything.
We got to go back and study, like, before, like, let's 200 years ago, 300 years ago. How did this work? Like, was it these people coming up with all these different scenarios to try and fix the economy all the time?
Well, yeah, you can go back to Adam Smith and the Wealth of Nations, right? And this is what some people have gone back to, so it's not the worst thing. I mean, yeah, you can do that, or should you just go back to the Bible and look at? I think that's your starting point, and then you can add secular wisdom on top of that. But and so, I mean, I think this is my main problem with things like Generation Squeeze, etc. Like, as a Christian, like, number one, doesn't make sense economically, or maybe that's number two. But as a Christian, it's not based on a real. I don't think, anyways. I don't think it's based on a genuine desire for fairness or for charity for others.
To love others,
love your neighbor as yourself. It's based on Marxist power politics, where somebody has something. Well, they must have gotten it unfairly from someone else. We talked about this before, like zero-sum politics or zero-sum thinking, right? Where the pie is limited. Yeah. So if somebody has a bigger piece of that pie,
they did it corruptly.
They must have done it corruptly, or they're participating in a corrupt system. So for
scarcity versus abundance, right? So
yeah, exactly.
You constantly think that there is a limited amount.
Yeah,
and if somebody else has it, you won't get any, or you won't get your share, or you won't get any.
And that's the problem with society, right? Yeah. That these seniors have these homes that are worth X amount of dollars. And they didn't do anything to grow that.
Great. Now I don't need to take care of them. I'm going to go start a logging company and make enough money to buy a house. In fact, I'll be making it out of logs because I
log homes. There you go.
Think abundantly, not scarcely.
Yeah. But no, we don't think that way. So obviously these miserly seniors have done bad by younger generations, because now they're sitting on this. It's like the dragon Smog, right? He's sitting on this hoard of gold, and he's just like looking with reptilian eyes and forking his tongue out and telling riddles and stuff. To these poor little hobbits who are like, I just would like a home of my own in the Shire,
Well, I got to read this here.
Okay, you read.
So, we're failing to be good stewards. Thanks to rising prices, many homeowners have extracted huge wealth from the housing system, especially those fortunate enough to buy into the market decades ago. Growing their wealth has come at the cost of harmful unaffordability for younger people, newcomers, and renters. So it mentions those who are fortunate enough to buy decades ago. So are they fortunate, or like now they're going to be unfortunate because these people are coming to steal all their stuff?
The gulag is coming for you guys.
They're fortunate enough to have all the wealth, and now we're fortunate enough to take it from them.
And I mean, how are they extracting this wealth,
Yeah, they've extracted huge wealth from the housing system. You mean they just bought a house, paid it off over a long period of time, now they own it? And in the meantime, the government printed all kinds of money, and houses are more scarce than money, so everybody buys them. Yeah, so they're more valuable.
Just dumb.
Yeah, I don't know.
And as I said, every facet of their thing relies on the government to basically spend more money, and to fix the problem, right? And it's like, this is exactly why we are where we are, because of unbridled government spending. You morons. Like you're you've identified a problem, inequality in wealth.
Called you morons, don't be a baby.
Something like that. But no, the goal is always with this type of thinking is always more government intervention, not less government, and more government spending.
I feel like that's why
which drives the price of assets
in the first place.
What's that?
I feel like that's the reason he went on the show in the first place, Prime Minister, to just, hey, maybe we should spend more money on this.
Yeah, well, and I mean, he's telegraphed this as well, right? With the we can't really hurt home values because we talked about this in a previous episode, right? How he doesn't want to destroy home values. And our thinking was because that is a huge pot of gold that he can tax. It's not because he's worried about seniors and, what are they going to do if we destroy their retirement nest egg, if that's where their retirement nest egg is, right? No, it's because I want to tax that. I want to get a piece of that,
right? So
that I could spend money. And, just the most inefficient way as well, right? Taxation in our system, because we know that 40% of your tax dollars are just going to go to the bureaucracy anyways.
Yeah.
Because we keep hiring and hiring. So it's not going to go
something if we're hiring all these people.
Oh man.
I'm thinking about this generation squeeze thing again, man.
Yeah.
So the family. So I'm thinking about this. Somebody has been fortunate enough to buy a family home years ago. They have a family and they raise their kids in that home and they pay it off and they work okay. And then all of a sudden something happened, and that's what they're saying, right? So now all of a sudden their kids, or maybe it's their kids' kids,
yep,
are growing up and they're not having kids. They can't afford a house. They have to go to school longer to get a better job.
Yeah.
To make less money, but there's no jobs because we have too many immigrants. But I'm where does this fall apart? I'm trying to figure out, was there a generation that all of a sudden now it's is it if you have kids in your house, you're taking care of them. I presume a lot of these people who have all this wealth in these houses have family that they'll be passing it down to. What's the squeeze?
Presumably.
What's the squeeze here? Where are the people getting squeezed if everybody has parents who have a house? Is it just people whose parents were renters or who don't own any assets or who made, like you said, poor decisions, right? Maybe they weren't fortunate enough 50 years ago to buy a house into the market.
Yep.
So they're not in the market. They don't have assets. So now this generation... is that where the problem is? Is the people 50 years ago who, if maybe this would be way more fair if everybody bought a house 50 years ago and everybody had a dad and a mom who, took care of them, and now they're all going to get, their share of that guy's house. That almost sounds like an Israelite model.
Well, again, it's the idea of the fixed pie and the fact that because of government spending, real estate prices have gone up. So the people with the most wealth in the country are seniors because they've paid off houses.
Yeah.
Right? So when you just have a simplistic view of this is where all the wealth is, look at that. And these people don't have any. That's terrible. Well, yeah, because it's harder to buy a house now unless your parents who had a house help you.
This constant idea that if you don't have a house, you're poor or you're vulnerable. They use that language, right? Being economically vulnerable or vulnerable. Yep. Is that true? Compared to other third world countries, they're doing really well. And they live in a society that...
Oh, yeah.
Just because you don't have millions and millions of dollars in housing assets, from 50 years of investing in... I don't know.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is simply is envy or covetousness. Right. And that's not to deny that, it's harder to buy a home now. But even if you're a renter, does that mean you're vulnerable or you're poor or whatever?
Don't focus on what you don't have. Yeah. Focus on what you do have. Everything. This is stewardship. You said we're failing to be good stewards. Be good stewards is you don't deserve anything to begin with. So, be thankful with what you have and use it to serve other people. Don't think about yourself. Think about other people.
You develop a miserly attitude as well, right? Which is, I think that's part of the problem. We've seen it, and this is not maybe doesn't make sense on first glance, but the idea of, you talk about the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset, right? And just the idea of families and having children, right? Families are getting smaller. There's less and less children because it's so expensive when we can't do it. And like we can't afford children, right? Like it's just nonsense, right? Have more children and figure it out.
Yeah.
And guess what? People who have more children, I'm not saying blanket statement, but how many people do we know with growing families who somehow make it work, right? But I think part of that is the mindset of scarcity versus abundance, and the mindset of like God takes care of me. Everything I have comes from Him, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. I know what I can control is I can work hard, right? Unless, maybe I can't work, but in general, we're talking about general norms. I can work hard. I know I can do that. That's one thing I have control over. I don't have control over what the government's doing or money printing or whatever else, but I can work hard, and you know what? I can have a family. I can praise God in that family. We can have children. Those are all things we can do. And I can complain about what my neighbor has or not, but like go work hard, do stuff. Anything. Then go camping once in a while with the kids and go fishing. But it's part of the mindset, I think, is looking at other people as opposed to looking at yourself, right? Like, oh, how do they have that and I don't, right? And
how is that fair?
But you can always do that too. It doesn't matter what stage you're in.
If you like, the people who have a lot can look at someone with more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you find that, right? That's what, talk to people in every stage of life. And, you're never going to be happy.
Is never content.
No, be content with what you have.
Worship money. If you make money your goal, you will never be content. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you'll have people like Generation Squeeze who will say, like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking
Generation Squeeze is playing to that human tendency, right?
They're talking about the vulnerable people in society. And like, I don't deny that there are.
Their hand and say, yeah, no, I want what other people have. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
And even if you have a house, you want to join this thing because you want to have two houses. Right? Like, it's everyone deserves to be having their house and their cottage. Like, what is this? I don't have a cottage. What's going on?
Yeah. And anyways, it's we can rag on them for a while, but I think it plays into current thinking, the government. So I would not be surprised at all if we saw a home equity tax as a plank of the next election platform.
Right.
Like, I don't know if there's much point in introducing it now. But if Trudeau's going to hang on, he'd be like, okay, I'm really going to play on this angle of rich versus poor, right? Because that's basic. It's visceral. People understand that at a basic level. Even if it's wrong, we're going to play to that. Yeah. Right. I think that's part of the playbook. So they're going to start making noise about this, and employment continues to get worse. That's fine. We're going to introduce universal basic income. So I think there's going to be a whole bunch of these things.
Yeah, I'm thinking universal basic income and even taxation, just behavioral manipulation techniques. That sounds bad, but like just trying to, manipulate behavior.
Yeah,
encourage certain behaviors, incentivize them, and punish other behaviors. And a lot of this is shifting the blame as well. Just like, not me.
And so it's kind of interesting. Like, what conclusion do you draw from this, right? Well, number one is get more assets. If you could buy a home,
don't be a baby.
You could buy another home.
Don't be a baby.
Well, not even that, but like all the solutions that we see are always more government spending. Right. And we know, just look at the charts. What does government spending do? It increases asset prices.
Yeah. So it also increases government jobs. So get a government job, use that job to qualify for a government-backed loan, and then
buy more assets.
And
which
hopefully
in this
you'll
case
be on the good side.
Single-family homes.
Avoid the taxation that they'll impose on your home. They probably do that at some point. Like have taxation for everybody on their principal residence except for government employees. I don't know. Mark's got a big yawn coming on.
Sorry, I'm getting to that senior.
You're done your Coke and you're almost at your water.
I know, drinking bottled water. There's nothing in there to give me a boost. But
Fueled by fiat.
yeah, I don't know. What's your fueled by fiat? What's your solution, Brent?
Well,
Do you
I
have any
had written
solutions?
down from your notes that we talked about before. Don't be a moron. Don't be
Okay.
don't be a baby.
Okay.
Don't be a baby. Have a baby. There you go.
Oh,
There you
I
go.
like that one actually.
Yeah, that'll be the title, kid.
That'd be the title, good. Don't be a baby, have a baby. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty good advice, Brent.
Yeah. So I think that's all.
Yeah, so-
hope and joy that I can pull out of coming back from vacation and talking to you on a Saturday afternoon.
Oh man. So I mean, yeah, you could think it looks dark for real estate investing, but I mean, at the end of the day, what else are you going to invest in?
Yeah.
Are you going to buy stocks and bonds?
You're
No,
talking
stocks.
financial instruments, because I'm thinking, okay, investing is a lot of different stuff, right? You have your time, and time is limited and scarce. You're
I'm
gonna
just
invest
talking
it.
about
Yeah.
investing money
Yeah, it's just money
and maybe your
Yeah.
time, which leads to money.
Yeah,
Like, what are you going to do if you're in Canada? All right, we've talked about people leaving, so that's fine. That's one thing. But we're like, what else are you going to do? You can start a business.
yeah,
If
which
you
will
want.
probably be on the bad side of the government, right? Like if you want to get into the energy sector and actually make money or whatever, you're going to be taxed or
Depends on which government we have, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think if
But it's so tricky if you're trying to build a long-term business and there's 4-year cycles of you can do this and now you can't do this. And now you're going to get financially rewarded for being in this industry. And now you're going to get financially obliterated.
it's hard. But what is
Yeah.
the one thing that we've seen that has continued to do well?
Yeah, real estate.
Real estate.
So hopefully
And
all the
there
government
may be more
officials,
taxes, sure.
all the elected government officials own a home or more than one. And they'll
Many do.
Yeah,
Many
I
do.
don't know. I don't
So-
know what the percentage is. Maybe
Yeah.
that'll be an interesting statistic.
So yeah, lousy outlook for the economy, for the government, everything else. But I think it's still probably a positive outlook for home investments. You know, bumpy ride notwithstanding. So there's the silver lining. Yeah?
We did it again. We did it again.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a little bit of a rant and some few updates. So hopefully you guys found some value in that. We're going to get back to some
Guests.
I think
people
some
who are
guests
smart.
and some book reviews as well in the upcoming episodes. So thank you for listening, folks, and until next time.
Steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
And if you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@goodstewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.